It was a night in November, and 6 of us were traveling to Rochester, New York to give a dance performance. The venue had a large stage with a piano on the floor, stage right. PJ started in the west wing and ran to the left wing. I started in the left wing and ran to the west wing. Jess was on stage about 4 feet back. Katie was opposite her, moving in a circular fashion. Brandon ascended a set of stairs and crossed over to the west wing. PJ continued crossing the stage, now flapping his arms. Taylor took a dumbwaiter from below the stage and made a dramatic entrance in a deep purple robe. Jess picked up Taylor, carried him near the audience, and dropped him. Taylor caught himself at the last moment and rolled quickly to his left. Katie moved to the left wing. I crossed her and headed upstage. Brandon and April started a piano duet. PJ ran to the back wall and started leaping towards the audience. I ran in a circle and then left through a trapdoor. Taylor also left through a trapdoor. At that point, a bird flew in the theater and headed into the left wing. The stage manager headed to the left wing to open a window and let the bird out. Jess headed to the top of the stage. Katie and April left through a door in the back of the stage. PJ picked up a large stone off stage and carried it to the center of the stage. Brandon did the same. April turned out to be PJ in disguise and left stage right. Brandon did the same. Jess walked to the center of the stage and ascended into the scaffolding.
Perfect diamond doesn't work, but I'll still be these sides here, so I'll go there. Yeah, it's all pretty rough. Thing is, I'll do 5 or 6 strands, hang them up, and then from there, decide if things move better, if they're thicker or thinner, or how close to hang them. I just have to work. I just have to do it.
It's called The History of Walls, and it's all centered around kind of places that have been significant to me that I've traveled through or had some kind of interaction with, and really more recalling kind of the textures or how the space kind of felt, you know, what the colors were, what the light was. For me, those are always kind of the most impactful things about memory. And so a lot of these are really kind of just richly textured, multi-layered pieces. And the last few that I've been working on, I've been involving a lot of like metallic powders, just based on a couple of spaces that I was when I was younger. There was one that was like in downtown Cleveland. It was a vacant kind of entryway to a store or an apartment complex. I'm not sure what the building was, but you would kind of like walk in and look up, and it was one of these big, you know, ornate kind of tin printed ceilings that had been painted over in white at some point, and just, it was all kind of falling down in pieces, you know, with this kind of beautiful metal showing underneath and this kind of like verdigris patina. I don't know, being in that place just made such a strong impression. In some ways, it's kind of one of my most influential memories of things that inspire me about urban spaces and just kind of this like idea of a layered history.
I feel like I'm always wedded or welded to the narrative even when I push back against it. I think the way we live in the IT age suggests, I had some really good people that I have faith in suggest to me once upon a time that if I could do something theatrical that was not dependent on straight line narrative, that would be good for contemporary audience, and I bought that thought. I said, that thought intrigues me, I can sort of see the rationale for it, but I'm always nevertheless connected to the narrative, however linear, however causal and sequential it needs to be. I can't quite make the break with it. So all the formal experimentation that I'm doing is always looking for an outlet that is the image that speaks poignantly and clearly to the narrative that I'm entertaining, even if I don't want to tell it in a straight line, linear fashion. Came upon the realization that in order to serve the narrative well, in order to be theatrical and successful, the things I do have to be recognizable. You know, a lot of dance, by contrast, to contrast the medium, a lot of dance doesn't have to be readable or recognizable in anything but a purely kinesthetic sense. It can be pleasant, cool, aesthetically satisfying, but it doesn't have to purvey any content necessarily, except the kinesthetic experience. And that's enough. But I am always looking for content. And right now it's this content that has to do with telling the story of, that I find so compelling, of the relationship between predators and victims. I'm experimenting with some forms. I'm looking to create things in a sculptural way with the body that speak of the lost self, the prisoner or victim, attached, confined, constrained, finding a way to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, lift yourself up by your own hair, so to speak. Playing with those kind of images, and the point is there's no continuity to it. It's just find an image here and find an image there. And right now the images are a little bit static. In the theater, dance, we talk about the attitude. And what I'm working with is attitudes, as if I was working with sculptures, as if I was trying to create sculptures, and that these sculptures should speak in the sense that, oh, I don't know, certainly some of the Rodin sculptures speak of human experiences, that we can recognize.
Tenderness and crazy, live in the same house. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think the second one. The second one? Yeah. Oh no! Was that the end of the phrase? We didn't really continue the phrase. We just like one thing we stopped. I don't know. We can continue the phrase. I was imagining it like happening inside the phrase. Oh! 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think you should do 12. The last step up. After the and I like it when this is a little bit like flappy or something. The arms are still, I don't know, somehow this is kind of stable, but everything else is a little flappy. You let your face get rotated. Oh.
Starting.
Push your head to the right.
And right. Right. We're still getting close.
Yeah, we just don't want it to get below 1/8 of an inch, I think. Where are you here?
Take a 6, between the 5 and the 6.
It's looking No, it looks really good. I mean, the mahogany is porous. Some of those scratches can be a little misleading.
Yeah, so you see the center line back there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yours, it's pretty much dead in the middle on your side. So one important thing here is that we're using the corresponding radius dish for the radius of the top.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's gonna, as this presses down, that's gonna be the right radius there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take I'm gonna glue up the kerfing. We're gonna take this guy and just making sure that it doesn't move off of that center line. We're gonna start going around. I'll start from this side and you start from that side, and we'll do our go bars. And it's gonna be a higher, we'll have our glasses on and everything.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot higher pressure than what we were doing on the other braces.
Yeah.
And it'll just be the same thing. You gotta make sure it's plumb and it's not twisting.
Okay.
But otherwise, there's no real difference. Okay, so I'm using the Type 3 tight bond, which has got the longer open time and the stronger hold. And I'm just going to go around, and if you can just hit the edge there and make sure that that there isn't a bead that's going to squeeze out there. Don't worry about the outside,
right.
Just the inside.
So this is the last day of this exhibition. I'm Lenka Clayton. I've made these 3 rooms of work. And just a very short introduction to the exhibition. So all of the work in these 3 rooms was made during an artist residency in Motherhood. That's an artist residency that I made up. It's a fully funded residency funded by the Pittsburgh Foundation and the Sustainable Art Foundation. And the idea is, unlike a normal artist residency, where you might go and sit in a cabin miles away from your family and get inspired by that sense of freedom, this artist residency actually happens in my life as a mother of a 5-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, and everything that entails. So during the residency, I aim to use the things that normally stop one from working as an artist when one's a parent, for example, not sleeping, being sort of distracted the whole time, having people running around your feet, using that as the inspiration for working. So motherhood isn't my subject, but rather my material as an artist.
More and more and more was revealed about how this came to be, and it's really a wondrous thing. And so we would love for you to listen in to a conversation. So if you could tell us, how did you come to be inspired for this project? What was your inspiration?
Okay, my inspiration was my own relationship, my husband Seth, and our relationship, and realizing that you hear something where to me there was like, oh yeah, that's obviously that. And then realizing that to Seth it was obviously something completely different, and that you had this sort of shared experience on the one level, but actually what that meant to you could be this completely different and unfathomable world. So I had this idea for the two of us, really, that we would both make a shoe separately and then reveal them to each other, and something wondrous would occur. I wasn't sure what, but and then as we did it, the process of it was so interesting. It was really difficult to do. First of all, I felt like it was hard to think, like, to commit to one way of making a shoe. So there were all these sort of strange personal struggles, like, it'll look terrible, I don't know what to make it out of, all that kind of stuff, which came up for both of us. And then when we revealed them to each other, there were these strange things. So he's a potter, but I made here are our shoes, I should probably show them. I used fabric and found materials a lot, and he made his out of scraps of leather and sewing. We both recently had a child, so they both turned out tiny. The instructions I gave were just make a brown shoe from things around the house. That's it. So I didn't say anything about the size. So there were all these kind of symbols of or signals of a mutual life together, which we didn't speak in words, but kind of an object.
So how do we consider the progress? I think when the young people I'm collaborating with show me something back that I proposed, and if I do it and say, could you just imitate that? Could you just, as well as you can? And it comes back to me, and I say to myself, A, it's readable, and B, it's poignant. In the space where I'm thinking about readable, I'm also asking myself, is it readable, and does it speak of what I care to speak of? So, and when it is, then I'm thinking that's progress. There's a time at the beginning of the show where the character wants to go through his life doing the things that he's doing, and I'm just trying to use the walk to get myself into it. He needs to be not so affected by gravity. Needs to be not so heavy. He wants to be light. He wants to be light, and he wants to move gracefully, and he wants to move rhythmically. And so if he were in his home or his studio doing the things that he does in his studio, boy, I'm really kind of not doing this very precisely, he would do it with this great sense of lightness. And subsequently, after he's had the experience with the predator, now when he moves in his studio, it's with a sense of weight. And at another point, so that now everything he lifts has weight, and everything has technically speaking, a sort of downward emphasis. Okay, so in France, this really good actor, director, and movement theater practitioner did a theater piece. It was based on As I Lay Dying, and he called it Autour d'une Mère, Around a Mother, because he didn't feel like he could use Faulkner's, probably wasn't in the public domain then, as I think about it. So in the process of doing this, he made this simple comment. He said, if a ballet choreographer can create a 45-minute ballet piece on the strength of one quotation that they find uplifting and deeply inspiring, The opposite is true for movement theater. You need the contents of a 450-page novel to create a 40-minute theater piece. And I actually think that's right. So one of the things that I think I have on my hands, is way too much content. And for me, the challenge right now is going to be to boil it down. And what I'm trying to do now is loosen that dependency on the narrative. I'm trying to tell less of the story. I'm trying to describe less as if it was absolutely necessary, the causal relationships between this and that. I'm just trying to put the things down there and let the spectator decide. But we've already clipped the ends of the piece a little bit. This piece wants now to be about the return from hell, not the revenge on the devil. I mean, I've had lots of experience with masks, and it seems like for every new project you have to learn over again what the mask is that you need, or if you're committed to using this mask for reasons that you embrace, you'll find that that mask can do some of the things you want it to do and can't do some of the things you want it to do. So how do you work around that? So that's kind of what, for the moment, what I'm going to try to do is structure a new set of masks that will do more what I want them to do. And one of the things I think that involves doing is making masks with less facial detail. There's also, the matter of of whether there will be a lot of skin in this piece, whether it might even be, very frank nudity. I've often said I have an interest in doing this nude work, but I don't want people who come to the theater to be confronted with nude me. It's not about me, it's about a humanoid who has skin and blood and muscles and bones and vulnerability and a quotient of self-acceptance, and the nudity as metaphor can be quite powerful, and but I don't want people to be confronted with me. I want them to see a human being.
Bounce.
I haven't opened this yet. I really like these sort of, well, I suppose one of my main processes or like way of looking for ideas is to go shopping, to go to thrift stores and secondhand stores and yard sales. And I don't usually go with an idea of what I'm looking for. I have a very long list of things that I collect, but I just usually go with curiosity and see what kind of things I'm drawn to. And that's where I get like really most of the ideas for my, well, a lot of the ideas for my work is just finding things in the world and then working out how I should complete them, or what their rules are, what's missing, what my role with that found object should be. So I basically go shopping for my ideas. So I'm really interested in these sort of collections, found collections. So this is like a collection of men. They're all pretty similar looking. Well, I mean, they're all in uniform, but they look like a similar age. They're all staring at the camera. So for this moment, they all came together. There was a context for this photograph that now, having bought it from a yard sale years later, I don't have the key to that context anymore. I don't know why. I mean, I could guess, but I don't know why who they are, or why they're standing in this particular spot, or why there are this many of them, or what happened to any of them. So the collection's lost its reason for being. That's really interesting to me. So I've been doing this project where I find anonymous groups of men like this, and then using only women's intuition, so an instinctive response, I try to realize what their names are just by looking at their faces. I like this project for intuition, just like sort of examining intuition, like not just going with it, fixing it, because it's this really sort of ephemeral response, but at the same time very absolute and definite, and I like just committing to it, recording that moment of certainty, smudging all of these.
mind and in your mind.
I think it'd be nice to at least try one or two where you're actually kind of moving a bit and maybe you can capture a bit of that motion. Cool. I think that'd be good. Do that. Pipe.
Yeah, it looks cool, but I couldn't show it.
So we have this one. We have the other one. And what was the other one? How did you take it?
Reaching.
You don't have to go all out, but just kind of give me an idea of. So one of the feet. Say it's a live broadcast. Just like that. I like that a lot. Go. And you stop there and kind of turn your head just a bit more to the left. Up a bit. Good. That's perfect. Okay. Let's get one more. Let's give it a yeah. That works too. Try to, like that. Can you tilt your head just a bit? Yeah. A little less. Right there.
we've all already had a warm-up, so I've lost count and I don't really care. Let's just call it stop here. What do you say?
Yeah.
And roll down. 1. When we do that, can we just make this small effort to push this up as far as we can while we're doing this lightly and not stretching? But the contrast would be not to do this, right? Because relax, we say relaxed, and then sometimes this happens.
Right.
Add the hips now. Hips, waist, chest. Head, hips, waist, chest. Head. 1, 2. So would you, for the last minute or so, give yourself one or the other of 2 or 3 alternatives, and I'd like you to do 2 or 3. Say to yourself, imagine moving in a curvilinear way through space, and the given circumstance that's affecting me in this moment is that I'm sad. And play with the idea that you're going to do something that's done under the influence of sadness, and you're going to make sure you keep it curvilinear. And then do something like do happy by contrast. And then by contrast perhaps do angry or frightened or something, some third thing, right, where you're going to take an actorly approach to doing this. The given circumstances, you're angry. What does that have power to make you do? And you're constrained to make it all be curvilinear. In a straight line or a direct fashion, I'm not going to allow myself anything that's very curvilinear. Straight, direct, straight, direct. So let's take the bounded notion of the line and suggest to ourselves what Laban suggests, and that is that if you encode what you're doing, if I'm angry at you and I encode it in straight lines, he says it will tend to express itself as if the energy is under the influence of the controlling effort of willpower. If I'm angry at you and I keep it in straight lines, you can be fairly sure I've got enough self-control not to cold cock you. But the minute it goes to curved lines, then you haven't got any sense that I have enough. That the Laban's implication is that the emotion has become more intense than the willpower's ability to keep it hemmed in. So it's bounded by will, or it's not bounded by will, and really, in a sense, under the influence of the emotion, maybe it would be fair to say out of control. So let's go to the 4 motifs. In other words, we're not going to be in the space now at the same time. You do it your way, and I'm going to do it my way. And what I would like to do is, if you make yours slightly curvilinear, you don't have to hang bells on that like
I was already trying to play with that.
Well, and of course I couldn't see it.
Right.
But what I'd like to test with fresh eyes is whether the effort to do it curvilinearly, that everything you do, nothing goes in a dead straight line like an architect making architectural drawings, you know. If everything has a little lilt to it, I see that curvilinearness as like a lilt in a song in music. If everything has a lilt to it, and if I do it then and try to emphasize the straightness, the control, do we get a contrast that is palpable? Do we get a contrast that is meaningful? Do we get a contrast that suggests an interpretation that we can expect people to see meaning in it?
I've been really trying to sort of make a studio practice. Actually, I didn't. I always kept a sketchbook, but I didn't usually work in a studio. I don't need like a defined amount of space, or I don't have a sort of practice that I don't use like one material or one method, or so I didn't used to think that having a studio is very important, but actually I think it really is for me. I think just having one place in the house that's mine and that sort of I can get things I'm not really sure what they're for and give them space and sit with them and be with them, and I kind of realize what to do with them after a while, but it's having the space to leave them in and sort of keep glimpsing them out the corner of my eye. If I didn't have that, I think I really wouldn't have a lot of the ideas I've had. That's probably okay. This bit's hard because it all just wants to fall off. So you have to get it wet like a bit at a time.
Yeah.
I really like how this process records the handling of an object. Because when I'm looking for things for my work, material or secondhand stuff like the photos or whatever, I'm really drawn to the ideas of the stories behind them. So not necessarily that you know about, but the sort of imagined stories of how they ended up being how they are, or who used them, or how they were used, and you can often see that in the way that they've been handled or repaired or broken or whatever. But I like how this process is just really recording the amount of time something's been handled. The more you touch it, the more defined the form. It's really like worrying. I like to think of it as being like the mental process of worrying, where your mind just kind of loops around something and just keeps going over the same ground, like playing out the same ideas over and over again. This is like physical worrying. Finished. I think it's finished. It's done enough.
this is called a mortise and tenon joint. Use these little barrel bolts. So there's the mortise, there's the tenon. This fits in nice and snug. That's the neck joint. It's also, once the whole thing's together, the fretboard's going to be actually glued to the top. This section, called the extension, this is actually glued to the top of the guitar as well. But otherwise, yeah, just this bolt. It's a really, really, really solid joint. This is the way some version of this is what most modern builders are doing. All the old Martins were actually like a traditional dovetail joint, but that was designed for nylon strings. You know, it really wasn't designed for the tension of steel strings. Not that the joint isn't strong enough, it's just the guitar moves around over time and you have to be able to take the neck off to make adjustments. Called a neck reset. Like you need to be able to eventually take it off and adjust the angle that it's pitched to the body. As time goes on, the string tension pulls up on the neck like that. Not so dramatically, but it pulls up on the neck and it pulls up on the body, so you actually have to pitch the neck down more and then reattach it to keep the action playable. So this makes that a lot easier. Roughing it right now, so you can see it starts knocking off the high parts first. If the side cracks, this has the grain going the other direction and a glue line can stop the crack from spreading further. There's no real reason for these to be pretty, but kind of do it for other guitar builders or repairmen that might look in the box, you know, and say, oh, nice, attention to detail.
This is like wild carrot. I mean, it doesn't taste like much, but it tastes like really tender, mild carrot greens. It's actually kind of delicious. You know, some of the things that I'll see, there's a lot of mint around here somewhere. And this is garlic mustard. Again, not necessarily something that I would use today, but these flowers are not as in your face as you would think coming from garlic mustard. And it's basically a weed. Most people just get rid of it. And I can smell mint. Yeah, this is all mint over here. And this is probably the most invasive weed in, well, especially Pittsburgh. And this is Japanese knotweed, but right now, when they're small and tender like this, it's actually also known as donkey rhubarb. So there's a tart kind of asparagus-y rhubarb flavor, and I really like it. And it's, you know, it's slightly bitter. If you get the really small, young leaves, it's actually really delicate. But again, you have to catch it when it's pretty much right out of the ground, because it grows incredibly quickly and it just takes over the world. You can see it even coming further back here. It gets really out of control really quickly. And once it's here, it has this root system. It seems like it's almost, I don't know that much about it, but I know that I've tried to remove it from my yard, and it seems like it's bamboo-y. I know there's a spot up the next block where there's just tons of really young yarrow. I think yarrow is another one of those weeds that's taken off in popularity with chefs the last, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years. Unfortunately, a lot of folks use it when it's too big and bitter and almost inedible because it looks beautiful. But if you harvest it when it's, again, small and tender and pretty fresh out of the ground, it's actually really delicious. It's got fennel-y, anise flavors. Yeah, like this is all beautiful. Like this is these really delicate little greens with fennel and rhubarb and oats and malted barley syrup. I'm pretty positive that it's going to be, you know, the kinds of stuff that I'm looking for. And I mean, if you just look, this is just a little patch of grass in Braddock. You know, there are fancy microgreens places and farms that gear their products towards chefs that will sell you yarrow for, you know, $25 for a little container. And this is all yarrow. I'm actually not sure what that was. I thought it was sheep sorrel, but it's a little big and it's not incredibly pleasant. No, I think violets are done. You can see the remnants of some of these. They're all kind of, they're frying up when the sun comes out. And generally desserts, I don't focus too much on sweet things. You know, I mean, there is a slight cake element to this. I made a lavender lemon pound cake last night, but it's mostly about produce and what's growing on the farm, what we're picking wild, you know, what we can get our hands on that is from here. And that said, you know, everything that I do is not local. You know, I like chocolate, I like coffee, I use salt, I use pepper. I mean, those things don't happen locally. We're not making cane sugar in Braddock, but the inspiration for these dishes, you know, and with most chefs around the country, is all, you know, what we can get our hands on locally. So this dish is focusing on rhubarb. I'm just going to poach it sous vide. I cryovac some rhubarb, and I'm going to use the hot water bath over there. Poach it for about 45 minutes at 61 Celsius, and then we'll just slice it. It's completely unseasoned, no sugar, no salt. We're just gonna let it be rhubarb. I'll probably put a little bit of salt on it after I slice it when it's out. And we're gonna pair that with, like I said, a little bit of lavender pound cake, some sheep's milk yogurt, and whole milk ricotta. And then I made some of these things I did ahead of time because they take 20 hours. This is a malted barley reduction that I actually made in the rotary evaporator. So we toasted barley and malt and added some water and basically evaporated it over the course of about 24 hours. And what you end up with is a really heavy reduction. It's almost like a caramel. and so it's nutty and rich, and it works really well with, you know, the tart and the sweet. And so then, you know, we have the rich element in the yogurt and the ricotta, and then we have the tart element of the rhubarb, the sweet and nutty of the syrup, and then I usually try to pair it with some fresh items and some kind of unexpected flavors that pair well. Today I'm going to use fennel. We finish it with some microplane white chocolate, and that's about it. All that work to plate it, and then I basically cover the whole thing. And I'm certainly not reinventing the wheel with rhubarb and white chocolate. It's, you know, it's a pretty classic pairing at this point. However, I don't know how many people plate white chocolate this way. It's a really fun way to eat white chocolate because you don't really know what it is. It looks like Parmesan cheese, or I'm not really sure what it is. It could be grated almonds. So then we go in, and I'm okay with a little bit of imperfection there. Too much mint is too much mint, so I try to be gentle with it. Another piece of fennel. I would call that done.
So the sculptural basis for the projector, this will project the hot tub piece, otherwise known as Yearning for the Mystics. And this base, which is still in process, I'm not sure. This is for the Hangman video that we're going to project, which will be adjustable higher or lower depending when we get in the gallery. And I may just nix it all together and just use a mount. So we'll see what happens. So those are the bases for the projections. In the Yearning for the Mystics video, there's a number of objects within the video. So I'm creating simulations. The name of the show is Dream Buddy, so it's a lot about the alternate world awakening to a different presence. So I'm making simulations of the objects that are in the video. So that's right now I'm casting that ball in plaster, which I'll then paint in a very faded color. So I gotta wait for that guy to dry. And these are the kickboards that are in the video as well. So as you can tell, I made them so they warp a little bit, so they're not perfect replicas. So these guys are they still have to be painted as well. I'm happy because I've been anxious to get in here to see how the pieces relate to one another. Because I haven't been able to do it in my studio. You've seen my studio. So it's been a challenge. And I'm finding that the two videos that are being projected, the audio for the one actually works for both. One of them is silent, but it works much better than I thought it would, than I had anticipated. So it's rather exciting. And there's no technical glitches, which is always a plus. which I don't think I've ever had happen with projection and sculpture combinations. So I will play, on this wall is going to be Yearning for the Mystics. This is the piece with the sound component. It's been a reaction for people when they're watching it to like start to turn their head over to like see it the other way to see how that affects them. Yeah. I've stopped doing it now. Now I can just look at it upside down. I've seen it so many times it doesn't bother me anymore. That's cool. It's good.
Well, just all these things with that and nice earrings. I just noticed.
But yeah, the water, if you look carefully, there'll be a moment after 15 seconds where it switches directions. But it's very subtle. First time I did that video, Jill's parents had a light in the tub, and there's all this steam that's coming off of it. And then when it reverses, the steam all sinks back down, which is really cool looking, but it doesn't give you the same kind of continuous nature. Tonight until 8 o'clock. I mean, how long is it? I can send him. I'll send him a message through this. And so I write Kurt. Yeah. We're getting to like sore back. Time of the night, like feeling good though. It's been a good night.
His dress, like brushed it.
It's in the text. That's all right, man.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Maybe. No, maybe not that night. I sat crying, and then I would like go to that thing, and after 4 shots I was drained. I'm like, I can't do this, you know. And he was like, well, you don't have to, like, it's not character acting, like, just act, just pretend to be sad. Like, okay. And then we're working with the other 2 marks, and they're just kind of like, the older guys like joking around, like, hey, blah 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 blah. Okay. And then just like that, and then as soon as he's done, he's like, how'd that one look, you know? And I'm like, how do you do that? It's incredible. But he was good, because I told him, like, you know, like big eyes, gasp of the mouth, and then I said, that's just what I said, and then take it and do one my way, and then do whatever direction you want to go in. So then Mark, we reshot his original footage, and the second time he started doing that blink and then smiling. And he didn't realize he was blinking. He's like, oh, God damn it, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, the blink's great. Because when you open your eyes in slow motion, it's when your smile starts. So it's almost like he cleanses himself before he changes. And so I was like, no. As soon as we saw that one, I'm like, that's the one we're going to use. Like, we don't need to do any more shots. And he's like,